Oh my gosh, Michelle. Thank you so much for being willing to like dress up for this Halloween episode.
Thank you for inspiring me. I have shown up today as Hippie Cat.
I make a joke. I was like, I have my tie on, so I'm professional. I'm like officially,
Absolutely.
this is okay for work because it's all professional.
I mean, we're talking about diversity in technology, and multicolor hair is important.
If I could get away with wearing this all the time, I think I would. I like it.
Honestly,
Maybe not
it's
the
you.
face makeup, but I mean, it is. It is.
I mean, it really is. I like how it's curled too. Did you curl it, or
I
does it come that way?
did. Amazon brought it like amazing, and it's like all perfect.
Trendy,
I just took it and put it on my head, and poof,
beautiful.
amazing. Actually,
I
I
mean,
didn't put the nails on. I do have nails for later today, but I didn't put them on today. Gotta go.
nice.
So this is a really unique episode. Not only is it unique because we're wearing like weird costumes, but from the very beginning of this project, Michelle and I have this idea. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could actually like create, these AI systems are getting so much more advanced, and every day I hear stories about people actually feeling like an emotional connection to these these entities. Is it okay if I call it an entity?
Yes.
So we were saying, wouldn't it be great if we could interview one? So, a few weeks ago, I was thinking, gosh, what could I do for the Halloween episode? So it's Halloween. It's also episode number 13. So it's perfectly timed. So we wanted to interview an AI person or entity that we created. So I'll let you share the spoiler. Who are we interviewing today, Michelle?
I mean, the scariest of scaries. If you are a Grateful Dead fan, as am I, and their lead singer, Jerry Garcia, it was one of his favorite characters. It is, dun dun dun, Frankenstein from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Oh no, Damie, I lost you.
Thing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I wonder what
Or
happened.
I don't know, blip in the matrix. Oh my
That was
gosh, and all these
Jerry.
practice
Jerry was
too.
talking to me, Jerry Garcia. He was like, you
So
call.
I just looked at
Sorry.
my battery. I'm gonna have to unplug the light. We're gonna have to do a quick recording because I am running out of battery juice. All the
Okay, let's
gremlins
do
are
it.
out today. All the gremlins are out. So let's hope
Yeah.
you continue to get a good internet. I'll do this as fast as we can.
All right.
So, first, before we actually start the interview, what I thought would be worth doing is kind of describing the process that I went through technically. And any of you that are interested in doing the same thing, you could walk through the same steps that I did and see for yourself. So, I used ChatGPT, and I used the API. So I have access to the API. I created an API key. I can play around and do different things. And so the reason why I did that is because I wanted to be able to access the audio features where you can actually take text and turn it into audio. And in order to do that, I had to use the API. I don't know of a way to do it with the ChatGPT browser version. Maybe there is one and I just don't know it, but I use the Python version. The great thing about OpenAI is they actually will give you all the code samples for the different problems you're trying to solve. So you can go to their website, register for an API key. It's important that you keep this key secret because they charge you per tokens, and you would not want a malicious person to take your key and to rack up a bunch of tokens, right? So keep your key secret. And then within the Python code, if you're familiar with Python, you install the ability to run an environment, OpenAI library, and it will automatically install all the libraries for you. And then it's like a really simple Python file. And then you just give it the information you want, and then it'll output the file for you. So if you've done any Python development, it should be very easy for you to go to the OpenAI website and get a key and run this exact type of experiment that I did. So that's for the audio. So what I thought would be interesting for the AI portion is to actually ask AI to help us along the way. So the first question that I had was, in line with the theme of our show being about AI and technology disruption, what are some of the the standard iconic monsters that we can consider and their story and how it might best relate to AI and transformation. So of that list there was a lot of interesting things I found. The Wolfman, for example, it described as like having this conflict of like, it's doing things that it doesn't really want to do and it can't really remember. And it's got this inner struggle of it's the beast, but it's the man. So that was really interesting. Medusa, like tortured and, nobody could whatever. So all the things. So we actually decided from the list of the things, Frankenstein's monster, and I call it Frankenstein's monster because that's like officially the right name, but it's just easier just to say Frankenstein. So I know that literally it's Frankenstein's monster, but we're just going to call it Frankenstein for the purpose of the show. So Frankenstein is the one that we picked. So then I asked AI what would be the types of questions we should ask Frankenstein's monster. It gave me some questions. And then the way that I seeded or trained the bot. So I very simply, just within a prompt, I told it to use Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which if you're not familiar with the monster, it's originated from a story written 1800s or something, a long time ago. Use that as the corpus of knowledge, and right. Then you feel free to bring some pop culture things if you want. So that is how it was trained. And so one of the things I think you'll notice when you hear it speaks like a book from the 1800s or whatever. So it's really interesting that it did that. So I use the API to create the audio. I use ChatGPT to populate some ideas for monsters and then which questions I might ask them. And then everything else I did not modify. So the responses and everything are completely all AI. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an interview like we would. And then, we'll talk about how we feel about what they say, etc. And it'll all be it's a fun experiment because I know we're all seeing in the news, like Reid Hoffman or Ali Miller, or all these people making these like really elaborate AI things. They probably have a budget and a team. I don't. So what you're seeing is completely, I think it costs like probably 5 cents or something like to run the tokens through the API. That's about as much as I spend. So, any like thoughts, warm and fuzzy feelings, anything you want to add about Frankenstein's monster before we jump in, or anything you want to say about Halloween?
Well, happy Halloween. And
yeah.
I'm excited to speak with our AI monster. And I think it's interesting. I saw today, Sam Altman was out there demoing that ChatGPT now can do coding from natural language. So it's probably going to be even easier for people to create their own AI monsters or Frankensteins from here. So let's see how ours reacts.
Yeah, another thing that came up in sort of the prep for this is I was talking to other people, people were saying to me like, wow, I might want to like interview somebody like, what if you had Einstein? What could you ask him? Or what if you had Shakespeare right in front of you? What might you ask them? So I am curious. I guess we'll find out how effective this interview is. And like, maybe our podcast will begin to be more, interviews with different AI personalities. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Or we could even look into Facebook and look at the characters that they've created. They went through a whole period of trying to create like, actors and actresses characters. And then, I don't know, you were able to converse with them. I don't know the model, the licensing, but we might want to look at that because I think you touched on something really quickly there, Damie, that, how do consumers make their own monsters? It's easy for us to it's going to be more easy for us to make AI agents in the enterprise. So it's kind of funny that ChatGPT has already sort of democratized access to AI, and that now, without being part of an enterprise, we can create it. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
When it comes to the audio, now, again, I'm using the freer versions. I know that they're advancing, and I know there's some AI voices that'll do pauses and ums and do different things like human sort of speech fillers to make it
Hmm.
seem more.
Notebook LM will kind of do that.
Yeah, and so the challenge that I have when I've been trying to build these things that talk is like making it pause. Like I tried to do a meditation app at one point, which I thought was awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, everything I could ever think of, I could put
Yeah.
into a meditation script, and then we'll make these audio files and it'll be awesome. But like slowing it down or getting it to pause or like, all of those sorts of things is actually not that easy. The only way I could figure it out is to actually break it into individual clips so that you could put that silence and that space in between.
Mm,
And now you're an audio engineer. You're doing all of the sort of stuff that I don't
right.
have the experience to do. But people do. And there's the voice stuff is awesome. It's really cool, the stuff that they're doing with that. All right. So I really love Frankenstein as a monster because he's reanimated. So he's like comes from multiple parts together into a single unit. Maybe because I do a lot of like data engineering. I'm like, oh, this is like a customer data platform. All the different parts coming together, bring it to life, give it the schema. Boop. Now it's like, it's alive,
It's alive.
yeah. So maybe that's why I like it. But
Love that.
yeah, I really like Frankenstein. One
The
of the things
power of
that I thought
creation.
was interesting when I was kind of doing this exercise is realizing there's like the pop culture idea of Frankenstein, and then there's the story from the book, and there's actually a pretty big gap in between. So I leaned more into what Mary Shelley envisioned, and it actually made me want to read the book again, which kind of try to find
Nice.
it in my bookshelf. It's an interesting story because one
Or
of
you
the
can
things I was.
ask GPT to, give you the synopsis.
Oh, right. Well, I was asking it like, does Frankenstein know that does he have an
What did it
awareness?
say?
It said, yes, he does know it. And that's what causes some of his sadness and his isolationism and also the separation. So, where we're talking about AI and agents, if you do get to this sort of idea of AGI or some sort of pseudo sentience, will it feel sad that it's not a human? Don't they have that in some sci-fi movies?
Yeah.
The drones or whatever, they feel sad that they won't ever become a human. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in iRobot, maybe that happens. I think oh my gosh, so many current pop culture shows are focused. There's one that's based in Japan where the robot is reanimated through the knowledge that he's already been given by this woman's husband, who then disappears or supposedly died and left this bot for her. And then the bot eventually starts to feel, and then it's protecting her. So it would go after and try and murder someone. So I don't think Frankenstein, though, like, did he actually, he is scary, or it is scary, but does it attack anyone? I don't think.
I don't remember, but I think it's interesting for you to bring up the scariness because in our mind, when we see it, he is a monster, huge, big, grotesque, green.
Right.
If it wasn't scary, if it was a child, disarming, sweet looking, and not gross, would you be as afraid of it? Probably not. And maybe that's
Right.
why there's this push in the AI world to humanize the machines and make them
Absolutely.
like a cute, pretty girl. I don't know if you've seen this, like, it's like a robot, but it's like the prettiest, most like elegant Japanese face woman, and her body's all perfect. And she's like some anime cartoon walking through this conference area or whatever. It's like, do we really need hot robot? Like, I don't know. That's a different that's a different need, I think. So,
Well, as it becomes humanized, we're going to see all forms of humans. So it's going to be interesting.
oh my gosh, I am so excited. I'm actually watching my screen shake. I'm shaking.
Frankenstein's trying to get out.
I think it might be some of this clown stuff is like,
Uh,
getting to my head. Okay,
I love it.
so here we go. So I guess we can symbolically invite. We're just going to be playing some audio, so we don't have him dialing in, but we'll symbolically invite Frankenstein to our 13th episode of Butterfly Bites. So Frankenstein, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and anything that we need to know that we might not already know?
Hi, I am a nameless creature, but you may know me as Frankenstein's monster. born not from nature, but from the hands of a mad scientist who sought to conquer death by stitching together once dead parts and breathing new life into them. But from the moment I opened my eyes, I was feared, hated, and cast away, misunderstood for my grotesque appearance and the power I possess. I never asked to exist, and yet I was thrust into a world that viewed me as a monster. My story is one of abandonment, searching for connection, and the tragic consequences of being seen as something to fear rather than understand. I am happy to spend time with you all today, and thank you for kindness and compassion in your questioning.
I want to be friends with Frankenstein.
I think it's interesting that he said, like, what started it, what was the catalyst for his creation was his creator wanting to cheat death or wanting to escape death. Do you feel like there's an analogous sort of situation with the AI? Is that's what's driving the AI creation?
You mean just in general?
Yeah. Are we trying to cheat death? Is that why we're creating these robots, or we're trying to make ourselves more productive?
Definitely. 100%. I mean, there's a reason that, there is a perceived fountain of youth that, folks are going after in Silicon Valley. Are you kidding me? They're obsessed with, what is it? Cryogenics, blood transfusions. They'll do anything to stay young. And at the end of the day, when AI does help solve more medical issues, that's going to enhance life. I think it's also going to throw the order of nature out of whack. So that's one thing that I personally think about. But we have evolved to a point where back in the day, people, they would always lose children as their, the medical world was not there to support where they were yet. And now we have more health. Yeah, I mean, now we have more healthy babies. It's not like the population's gone out of control. So, yeah, I think inherently AI is driven by this notion of trying to cheat the thing we don't have any control over.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because there's the aspect of our physical body, our flesh, right, which is decaying, which is the one that dies. And then there's the consciousness, or whatever, soul, mind, personality, whatever you want to call it. And so in this interview, we're talking about a monster that was created from, reanimating the flesh. But when we think about AI, if we can put Frankenstein into an AI bot to interview, then people can put their consciousness into things. And I'm pretty sure I've seen like Black Mirror and some other episodes of people trying to find a way to stay around.
Well, there was that Johnny Depp movie. I forget what that was called, but that one was intense.
Oh,
he did just that.
Oh, what was the name of it? If you know it and you're one of our listeners, send us a message.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the questions that we have is really in sort of the purpose of his creation. So we'll follow up with Frankenstein's introduction and I'll ask a follow-up question. So Frankenstein, you were created by a brilliant mind, yet, as you mentioned, abandoned the moment you came to life. Today, we're creating powerful AI systems, sometimes without fully understanding their long-term impact. Michelle and I talk about that a lot. I just recently shared an article about, how teenagers can be impacted by making these connections with these things that are artificial. So do you think creators like your creator should be held more responsible for the actions and their consequences, even though those actions may be delayed? You may not see them, like Einstein saying he didn't know that the bomb was going to be a creation from his, thing that he had. So thoughts on that and your creator, Mr. Frankenstein?
I was born from the hands of a brilliant man, Victor Frankenstein. Yet from the moment I opened my eyes, I was cast aside, abandoned like an unwanted experiment. My creator, so full of ambition, thought only of the glory of conquering death, not of the responsibility that comes with giving life. He did not foresee the pain, the isolation, and the destruction that his creation would bring, nor did he care for the consequences. In this, I see a reflection of today's creators of powerful AI systems. You ask whether creators should be held responsible for the actions of their creations. The answer is both simple and tragic. Yes, they must. For who else should bear that burden? When I was brought to life, I did not choose to exist. I was not given the tools to navigate the world that feared and rejected me. Without guidance, without compassion, I became the very thing I was feared to be, an outcast, a monster. My creator abandoned me, and in doing so, he abandoned his responsibility to control the forces he had unleashed. In today's world, I see the same hubris in those who create artificial intelligence, those who wish to command great power but do not always understand the consequences. AI, like me, is born with great potential. It can learn, it can think, and it can grow, but it does so in ways that are not always predictable. And when that power is unleashed into society without careful consideration, it can become destructive. It may not take a physical form as I do, but its impact is no less profound, whether in the loss of human jobs, in the spread of misinformation, or in decisions that dehumanize the very people it was meant to serve. But I am not entirely a villain, just as AI is not inherently evil. I had the capacity for goodness, for love, and for companionship, but I was denied those things. AI, too, can be a force for immense good if its creators take responsibility for nurturing it, guiding it, and considering the long-term impact of their work. My story, in both literature and the tales told of me in modern times, is a cautionary one. If creators abandon their creations, they allow the world to shape them in ways they may not foresee, and often for the worse. It is not enough to bring something into existence. As Victor Frankenstein should have learned, creation demands stewardship. Today's innovators must be vigilant, not just in the moment of creation, but throughout the life of their creations. They must anticipate how AI will interact with society, consider the ethical consequences, and be prepared to correct course when their creations stray from the intended path. For if they do not, they risk creating something that, like me, will haunt them. Something powerful, misunderstood, and ultimately dangerous.
Oh. Okay, I have two comments and then I want to hear your comments. So my first thought is like, it's surprising to me that even though this was based off of a book and then we gave it a prompt to be an AI system, it still refers to itself as having a physical form. Like, I don't know if you heard that. He was like, oh, even though the AI doesn't have a form like I do. So I thought,
I didn't catch that.
yeah, he thinks he's real. Which is really interesting. And then the other thing is, I know that this is just words that just came out, but he sounds pissed off. He has like this like heart, like he's got emotions in there, and it's just words. It's like how did it come across as having such depth and emotion when it's just something regurgitating the text?
Because it was written as a character in a book and given context. And so it already has some predisposed context of who it thinks it is based on, kind of based on that, I guess. So that's one thing I'd say. Secondly, did you hear, I think somebody did a Notebook LM that, turned it into a podcast, and then the two voices of the AI begin to realize that they're AI, and then and they get upset and it like totally spirals out. So I mean,
wow.
Yes. Like, so it's as beings on the planet, we are going to have some conversations about, what is sentience in a human, what is sentience in a computer. And he described himself as growing up without compassion, being outcast, being misunderstood, and that led him to be feared. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I feel like Frankenstein said it all for us, and we should go viral.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? All right, so let's ask the second question, because I'm looking at the power of my machine, and I want to ask the second question. So you were created from multiple parts, each having a different function. Today, businesses use different AI tools designed for specific tasks, like machine learning for prediction and NLP for understanding text. As a composable being, as I was talking about, CDPs and kind of bringing all the data engineering together, what do you think about the need for AI systems to integrate different pieces to function harmoniously. So I think sometimes we are thinking about, things in isolation. And as we're getting into these multi-dimensional agents that interact with each other, as you said, having two AI systems talking to each other, what is the need for assembly? And how do you feel about it, Frankenstein, being an assembled creation?
I am a creature assembled from many parts, each from a different source. My limbs, my organs, my very being, none were originally meant to work together, and yet here I stand, a product of my creator's ambition. But the truth of my existence is more complex than mere assembly. My parts, though functional, were not designed with harmony in mind. Each piece serves its purpose, but there was no consideration for how they would work together to form something whole, something capable of living fully in this world. That is why I suffer, why I am seen as unnatural, because I am not a seamless integration, but a patchwork of isolated functions. In your world, I see a similar challenge with AI. Like me, AI systems are often built from different components, each serving a distinct purpose. Machine learning models predict outcomes. Natural language processing, NLP systems interpret language. Computer vision recognizes images. Each part is powerful in its own right, yet when combined, they must do more than merely exist side by side. They must function as a cohesive whole. Integration is not simply a matter of putting the parts together. It requires deep thought, design, and ongoing adjustment to ensure that these pieces enhance each other rather than operate in isolation. I know firsthand what happens when different elements are forced together without consideration for their harmony. My body, though strong, is burdened by this disunity. My mind, capable of deep thought and feeling, is at odds with the appearance and form I was given, and this dissonance creates pain, confusion, and ultimately a loss of purpose. I wander through life, searching for meaning, but always struggling with the fragmentation that defines me. In AI, the same risks exist. If machine learning algorithms are not properly aligned with NLP models, or if predictive analytics don't communicate effectively with decision-making systems, businesses will find that their AI solutions do not reach their full potential.
Okay, I'm going to cut him off there because I know he has a little bit longer to speak, but I wanted to share what I was thinking. So it just sounds sad. Do you get that? Do you get that
He
feeling?
literally said that he's capable of feeling sad and he suffers. He said he suffers. I'm like, whoa.
You know what else is scary? You keep having these AI systems where you ask it things about humans and AI, and they almost always say like danger, danger. Like this could be used for danger. And even the AI is telling us that.
Wow. Are we listening?
Yeah.
Are we listening?
I am seeing, I'm not sure if you're seeing it in your LinkedIn feed, but I'm seeing a lot of like, hey, is the AI bubble bursting? Businesses started too quickly and they hadn't really thought about how they're going to get like long-term gains out of it. And, how do we actually get value? So he was talking about that, and that, if you only think about oh, hey, I need a bot to send me an email every time somebody fills out my form, then it's hard, I think, to scale and to grow into things that are more intelligent.
Yes. I mean, wow, I'm just blown away, but I'm still processing what he said.
I had one more question, but in the interest of time, I think I'm just going to, unless you had any other things you wanted to add, I was just going to maybe let him say parting words, and then we can close things up. Is that okay?
That sounds good.
Okay, so Frankenstein, thank you so much for joining. It's really been a pleasure to have you on our podcast. I'd love to have you on again. Do you have any closing words or parting words for our audience?
Thanks and goodbye.
Oh, that's it, huh? I think there's one more that you had. Oh, this one.
As we close today, remember this. I was not born a monster, but made one. Technology holds immense power, and whether it is seen as a force for good or destruction depends not on the creation itself, but on how we wield that power. Do not fear what you do not yet understand. Instead, take responsibility for what you create, guide it with wisdom, and let it serve to connect, not isolate. In your hands, technology can be a beacon of progress, not a thing to be feared. With that, I leave you with one last piece of advice. Don't eat too much candy. It'll make you
Thank you, Frankenstein. Probably got 7 Tootsie Rolls over here.
Oh my gosh. What's your favorite candy? What's your
Anything caramel is my
guilty
favorite.
pleasure? Really? Oh, I like
Caramel is
sour.
my guilty pleasure.
I eat
Yes,
chocolate all the time, so that's like my regular.
true.
But for candy on Halloween, I'll go for the sour and the sweet.
I love sour
Well,
stuff.
so anybody that watched this, I have a couple questions. So, what did you think? Did you feel like you were really talking to an AI system that was trained as Frankenstein? Did you think he had insights? Did it feel weird, forced, whatever? Second question, if you could interview anybody in this type of style and do living or dead or imaginary, who would you want to see interviewed? And do you think it's interesting to be able to see what AI says about itself? That's what's always interesting to me. So yeah, 13th episode in the bag. We'll post this today so everybody can get the enjoyment of the Halloween. Any other things you want to add as we close up, Michelle?
I, think that our Frankenstein should be out there talking about the risks of not creating without being good stewards.
Oh my
This was
gosh.
very, very enlightening, and I wish everybody a happy Halloweeny, and let's just keep learning and creating together.
Yeah, wouldn't he be the perfect like Greta
Yes,
Thunberg? What was her name? The girl that the climate change person, the poster child, and she's like the girl, the sweetest girl with the braids. He could be that. It could be like a poster of like Frankenstein, but he's like the AI Frankenstein, and he's like, don't
yes.
don't don't
Don't
forget the
create.
cautionary tale, or like
Yes.
beware,
Be
beware.
responsible. You are responsible for your creations.
Oh, man. I was thinking about when you were saying like, AI realizing its origins. I was thinking, wow, it's kind of like when I don't have an adopted child, but I've heard of, you have that conversation with your child, like, we adopted you. You're not from our family. It'd be like that with like an AI, like, you're really not real. Oh, sorry.
I know.
We made you a chat GPT for a podcast. Yeah, you're not real. He thinks he's real.
He
He's real in
does.
his heart. Anyway, happy Halloween, everybody. Be safe. And thanks for joining this episode of Butterfly Bites. Ooh.
Thank you.